The best saxophone to buy. Guys, in the comments, you've been leaving some nasty comments about what I think about sound. And it's not that sound is just one thing. It's not, because sound is not just the saxophone, okay? Saxophone, it is more of a comfort thing. It's like the tool you use. Okay, let's say you use you're doing yard work, right? And let's say you use a push mower instead of a riding lawnmower. Well, maybe the person on the riding lawnmower has an easier time cutting the grass because, you know, the push lawnmower takes a lot more walking, a lot more work, you know. It's the same thing between a beginner or an intermediate saxophone. A beginner saxophone, you have to put more work into it in most cases, because when people make their beginner saxophones, say Yamaha or let's see Bundy, Selmer, depending on what you have, most of those beginner saxophones, the ones that don't have that much brass in them, you have to actually work harder to get a good sound. I mean, and it's a subtle thing. It's not like a big thing. It's not like you're gonna, oh my goodness, I need to get another saxophone just because of the sound. It doesn't really matter that much. The actual saxophone doesn't make a huge difference in your sound like the mouthpiece would or the reed would, you know. But the thing is, it's all about your embouchure first. You have to develop a sound and know where your sound should go, or what direction your sound should be going. So say if you want a jazzier sound, maybe you'll get that mouthpiece to actually flip the tides into a jazzier sound. And then even when you get the mouthpiece, you have to get used to it to cultivate your sound. You have to refine and enrich it. So, you know, it's not something that's just going to happen over one day, and it's not just because you buy a new saxophone. So necessarily, there's no best saxophone. Now, there are well-built saxophones and saxophones that are built better than others, and they are comfortable to your hands. Now, that is another thing that can help sound. Now, necessarily, it's not all about what the saxophone is made out of, because what saxophone is made out of and your mouthpiece, they could contradict each other. Say you have a Yanakazawa saxophone, one of the 900 series, one of the ones like A900, I believe that's what it's called. One of the ones that just came out. Now I heard it was a very bright saxophone. Now if you have a very bright mouthpiece, you're just gonna have a generally bright sound. But if you have like a bright mouthpiece with a dark ligature on it, like a Ravner dark, then you might have, you know, a darker type sound, or a covered sound, more specifically, because you still have a bright saxophone, you know. And that, you know, has something to do with what it's made out of. But the thing is, when you're a beginner, the reason the beginner saxophones are so much different than the, you know, semi-pro, intermediate, advanced models, pro, professional models, whatever adjective they give to it, it's made so you can get your skills up. It's made for you to actually get the feel of a saxophone, not necessarily made to help your sound out. It's not necessarily made for that. Now, there's a difference between a saxophone that was made in 1912 and a saxophone that's made in 2012. There's a big difference. Now, you can't tell me that doesn't help sound if you have a saxophone that's made in 2012, you know, depending on which saxophone you have. But in general, the fingering is different. It's going to help you get those licks that you want to. You won't have to be, you know, afraid to hit those licks that you want to, because this saxophone is made, you know, for speed. And, you know, it's made to outdo the ones 100 years ago. So, I mean, saxophones do have a lot to do with sound, but at the same time they don't, you know, depending on what level you're on. I mean, you just have to really get comfortable. And some people don't even like, you know, just buying another saxophone. You know, some people just like staying with what they are. It's just about what you want to do with it, you know. It could help, or it couldn't help. So, I mean, it's not all about the saxophone, and the saxophone is not always the best thing, you know, when it comes to playing. But I must say that if someone gave me a choice on whether to play a Bundy, you know, a beginner model in reference to a Mark 6, I'll probably choose the Mark 6. You know, that's just me because, you know, I love, you know, seeing what different saxophones sound like when I play them and how comfortable do I feel. That's just me. You know, if you don't like to find a saxophone that's comfortable to you, or you just like your saxophone that you have, that's you. You know, I feel like Yamahas are more comfortable than Selmers in a way, but that's just me. You know, but I do like Selmers for that sound, you know, and I do like Yamahas for that sound. They're almost equal in my book, you know. And then I like the Cannonballs. You know, the Cannonballs are really, really rich in that low bottom tone that you know, Tevis Lockett was talking about all the time. And Tevis Lockett is the president of Cannonball Instruments, if you don't know. But that bottom goes hard on the tenors in the Cannonball brand, because I have never, you know, felt the power that I felt from a saxophone since I played that Cannonball. You know. But guys, don't put so much stress on the saxophone. If anything, if you want to change your sound drastically to yield to a certain sound, get a mouthpiece and then work on your embouchure. Work embouchure first and then mouthpiece second. Everything else. Embouchure first. That's the way you put your mouth on your horn to achieve a certain sound. Mouthpiece second. Everything else. You know, and the saxophone probably third. You know, just depending on what you want out of your saxophone, you know. And it's different between a curved saxophone and a straight saxophone, and you know, there's differences. You just have to experiment and then just find your way. So there's, in my opinion, so many saxophones do certain things. I don't have a favorite saxophone, and I don't think that there's even a best saxophone out there. There's just what you desire out of that saxophone that rivals the most. You know, so basically, if you like the low notes like me, if I like to be able to hit low notes on the tenor, then I want a tenor that can play those low notes when I call it to action, and not only play those low notes but be comfortable and so like that. But maybe you're not a low note player. It's all in the person. I mean, and it's not just a saxophone. So it's all about what you want, you guys. And I don't have a favorite sax. I don't have a best saxophone. You know, I just rate the saxophones that I get, and you know, hey, it's whatever. But well, actually, no, it's not whatever. It's whatever you think. That's what it is. So yeah, guys, just play around with this stuff. You know, experiment with what you think the best saxophone is. You know, people were saying a lot of good things about the Summer Prelude that I'm playing. Yeah, I mean, it's a really good saxophone, but it also depends on your lifestyle. If you can afford it, go ahead and afford it. But Selmer is a thick name, and Selmer's name is not necessarily on top of the Prelude. It just says Prelude on there, but it's a Selmer brand. So, guys, it's just all about what you can do, what you can afford, what you want, what you think about certain saxophones more than others, and what you tend to play on saxophone, you know, better than others. If you think low notes is your strong suit like me on the tenor, hey, play those low notes. You know, get a saxophone that can actually give you bang for your buck on the low notes, like the Cannonball. But you know, some guy in the comments was like, well, you know, the Phil Baron saxophone was better, or can rival the Mark 6 and you know all those other fat cat saxophone playing style of horns. And yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know, but here's the thing. It's all about what you want. And if I feel like, you know, hey, Cannonball is a really good saxophone for my style of playing, hey, that's me. I mean, you might have a different opinion, you might have a different saxophone set or setup. But this is Devin, and I hope this helps.